Would you have wanted Kibicho to rig elections so that Raila wins? Ruto had more votes than Raila. They did not place a call to us to tell us to change the will of the people. If there is a deep state, then I would want to know the new one. They are there now. You can ask them whether they can actually command National Police Service. They can't. If there is a DCI who arrested a person, I am offering myself one of to say that Kibicho called us and told us, arrest this person. If Kibicho murdered a person, why should he be walking free? Mackenzie is in the prison, Shakahola, who is in remand for River Yala.
Welcome to tonight's discussion, and I'm honored to have the former Principal Secretary of the Ministry of Interior and Citizen Service. This is Dr. Engineer Kibicho. Kibicho, welcome to the program.
Asante sana.
It's been a while. It's good to see you.
Yeah, I'm still
looking
alive.
Relaxed.
Yeah,
I can see the Abai, lodges and spa.
Breathing.
Quite refreshing, isn't it?
Yeah.
So what have you been up to?
Well, I left government after the last general election of 2022. My last working day was 5th December 2022. And obviously, having been in government for 14 years, I was very tired. And I made a deliberate decision to take time off, first to rest, and second to reflect and also have another world view because I came to government when I was a grown-up. I had a life before that and see whether I can reconnect the old life to the life I had lived and the life I would want to live. And that is how, you know, when you are working, and I hope you are also preparing, you must think about post-employment. And you know, when you are thinking about post-employment activities, you get very many business ideas. So I had very many of them, and people were bringing me very many of them. In fact, because I'm sure you are aware I come from Kirinyaga, there is a group that had proposed to me that we don't have a very nice morgue in Kirinyaga. Why can't you try this when you retire? Then I figured how that would look like. Nikienda asubuhi to check how work is performing, the kind of questions I'll be asking. Kazi iko namna gani, mliingiza wangapi jana? I thought that's not my kind of life.
Yes. And
that's how we ended up being a buy, because there's a hotel, and I figured out because the entire business of hotel is to sell happiness, and I truly needed to be a happy person. And then I dived there. And that's what we've been doing. We've started from scratch, and have grown now to be a reasonable hotel.
Yeah, to sell happiness. I like the sound of it. Are you also in touch with Kiraito Murungi, you know, who has been very intent also on the Happiness Institute?
In fact, I want to be sending my staff to his institute because if he has a curriculum, as we are doing practicals, we just get a person like you who probably at entry doesn't look very happy. Our gauge is how happy are you as you live.
I hope I'm looking a bit happy right now. But anyway, it's good that we have an inkling of what you've been up to, and of course contributing to the good of a society. So let's just also plumb deeper, because you're talking about reflection. And I think they always say that you cannot see the picture if you're in the frame. Now that you're out of the frame, you can clearly see the picture. And this is where we are coming in with this particular discussion today, to just look at the current lay of the land, politically, economically, and socially. of Kenya where it is right now. But we go back to your tenure during your time in the Ministry of Interior, and of course we'll also go back during your tenure in the Ministry of Industrialization as well. Also you coming from the academia. But primarily, during your tenure there, we cannot avoid talking about a confluence of issues that really came to bear. But one critical one that maybe we might want to discuss and start with is the COVID-19 pandemic. This truly came from the left side for everyone globally. And we saw how we were adversely affected as a country. From your own assessment, you as a principal secretary then, do you think we handled the COVID-19 pandemic in the wisest of fashion?
Yeah, I think COVID came as a shocker to everyone because initial news coming from China, China looks very far away from us, sounded like a joke until one morning, one fine lady landed here and diagnosed COVID positive. And we had all these information around how devastating it would get. And you remember the initial variant was very aggressive. Actually, most of the people who contracted the initial variant ended up dying because one, there wasn't sufficient knowledge around it. The medication was not adequate and generally unprepared. And you see, the whole idea then was first to ensure that it's not spreading by containing people who had already contracted it into a fixed place so that they are not traveling. What those days we are calling contact tracing. So you would go look for people who had been diagnosed as positive and then confine them in a place to just ensure that it's not spreading. Then when that, you see, in the fullness of time, more and more people started contracting COVID. And therefore came the era of lockdowns, where you then, if Nairobi is the one that's so affected, you ensure that there isn't movement in and out of Nairobi. And the lockdown was basically regional based on the numbers we had. We actually had a command center in Embakasi that I was actually chairing, that was coordinating this. And as it would turn out, when you constrain people, they can't move, they can't go to work, then an economic problems comes in because people need to eat, people need to earn, life needs to go on. And I think if there's something that I really would pat the team on their back for that time is because COVID opened our eyes. First, that you can do a lot of work that is productive without necessarily going to an office physically. And that is the era of work from home. Yeah. So that if your work does not necessarily need you to physically be at a place, then an infrastructure was created to ensure that you work from home. And there are very many players, private sector, very many players, Kina Safaricom allowing even transactions that were below 1,000 shillings to be for free, to just ensure that contact, physical contact of people because of trade went down. And then there was the era of now support for the people who are not going to work, people who are vulnerable, and they were categorized because we had an entire team that was dealing with the data analysis and seeing the effect on people and the economy. So came the era of supporting the vulnerable, and I can tell you, every week, the government of Kenya was disbursing 300 million shillings. Every week to vulnerable people. I will tell you, there is a very big institution in government that we found very useful called the National Government Administration Officers. These are the assistant chiefs all the way to regional commissioners. So once we decide there will be a lockdown, for example, in Nairobi, we would activate that system to ensure that there is no movement that happens across borders of the area that has been isolated. If we decide that people now must wear masks, nose masks, then we use this institution to ensure that nobody goes to a public area without it, and we saw how effective it was. And this and more other initiatives that were there then, what in total helped Kenya come out as a champion in the fight against COVID.
Right, so recently we had a headline that was telling Kenyans that 8 billion shillings was actually paid and no vaccines really came into the country. And even as we speak, we know there are court cases where people are challenging these vaccines that Kenyans were purportedly forced to take, and maybe there are blowbacks. I know that was not really under your remit. We could say, oh yeah, this was the Ministry of Health that can be, basically answer that question very fluently. But it was a multi-agency that was now put forward to try and fight this pandemic. The question is, from your own assessment, when we hear these cases and the corruption that really came in during that part time, because people now are vulnerable, people are scared, and everyone is looking for their own safety. And we have, kits which are being sold in a very astronomical figures that we cannot even, begin even talking about, and taking advantage of that particular pandemic. You as a Kenyan right now, and having this conscience that you've been also reflecting, what would you say?
Whenever an opportunity arises, sometimes because of a misfortune, there are people who, of course, want to exploit it. When COVID came, and the first attempt is for you not to infect people, you need, for example, to wear nose masks. You lived in this country, the initial nose masks were costing 100 bob each almost, even when you go to a vendor. Because nose masks were not things on our shelves then, because we never had COVID. In fact, I'm sure before COVID, probably you had only seen people wearing nose masks in hospitals. And therefore, the initial costs was very high of all the PPEs, the physical barriers of contacts between people. And therefore, some businessmen, of course, would see an opportunity where they would import those things and sell to government, which was the biggest client then. But if you remember, the speed at which, because after a problem is created, also manufacturers go in and try now to address themselves to the new problem. So the supply of nose masks quickly became too big, forcing the costs down. But there are people, probably in KEMSA, I'm only commenting on things that I'm aware of, about how the medicine works and all that. I don't think I have any competence to do that. But I have knowledge that I have around why KEMSA had nose masks in their thousands, which were not being taken up by the counties who are responsible for health, is because they stocked things that they had acquired initially when the nose masks were very costly. Then the whole market was flooded with nose masks that were cheap. So nobody has any interest. There is no county that would, of course, go pay for the expensive ones when they're in the market, cheap ones. And I think if we are fair to the system and interrogate it without name calling, you will find that there are businessmen who are stuck with overpriced things that they had already supplied KEMSA, but KEMSA cannot, because KEMSA at that time, I don't know whether it's the same thing that happens today, KEMSA at that time would procure medicine, then it would sell medicine to the counties, because counties are responsible for health by our constitution. So it then meant, even if KEMSA is the one who had procured, then they would have to sell the same to the counties. And because counties had the flexibility of making a choice, do you buy these expensive ones or the cheap ones that are in the market? Then KEMSA was left with loads and loads of PPEs, including nose masks that were overpriced. I don't know whether they have actually been able to even dispose of them, because the cost of PPEs and nose masks went down drastically because of supply chain dynamics. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You were characterized as one of the principal secretaries that was in the deep state, and you appeared to be working, of course, with the apparatus of government then, in conformity with, of course, the BBI project that was there and advancing that particular agenda of the BBI. Would you want to clarify to Kenyans who the deep states were?
We left government, and I think if there's a deep state, then I would want to know the new one. You know, there are things that are said, and they seem to be true because of lack of information by majority of the consumer of such propaganda. You know, I was the PS for Ministry of Interior. Yeah? And Ministry of Interior has certain responsibilities. It still has, even today. And because the position we occupied is a position that demands you to have certain responsibility in especially what you say. And therefore, all accusations were flying around, one-sided, without ever having us have an opportunity because of collective responsibility. I would want to know what deep state is today, but as it would always happen, and I hope that the people who are in offices actually create one, because the problem that I see is if you don't, and it's not just this government, Kenyan government, it's governments all over. You must create a boogeyman who is the one who takes all the bullets on behalf of the king, even for things they don't know. But they are employed to take the bullets on behalf of the king. And therefore, I understood my job very well. 90% of the things that I was being accused of doing, saying, harboring, I was also hearing them sometimes for the first time as they are being said.
For the first time.
But someone must be blamed.
Yeah, when, how would you then describe the occurrences of Kamata Friday? Because these were very evident. I mean, it was being displayed on television. People can see we have security officers. Of course, with security vehicles, they are actually, invading without even any court warrants, houses of politicians who are akin to be on the opposition side.
I think I wouldn't come here to lay blame on any government institutions. Yeah. But because now I'm a Kenyan, I can say some of the things. One time, I saw in the news that Moses Kuria had been arrested. One time, and Moses Kuria is your friend, you can ask him actually. I also ask, why is Moses Kuria arrested? And this is political time. So I called the DCI that time and asked, why do you want to give Moses Kuria mileage, political, by arresting him over things I'm also not understanding? So I started negotiating for Moses Kuria. Negotiating. Because unlike what people believe, yeah, the Ministry of Interior, they are there now. You can ask them whether they can actually command National Police Service National Police Service. They can't. But they work together. So we are the civilian front as a ministry of police, because police are disciplined. So the civilian front and the political front of National Police Service is Ministry of Interior. So you interpret things broader than them, because you have more view of the country than just security. Then when I'm very busy doing that, I see Moses Kuria on TV saying, Kibicho hata ukinishika. I'm here very busy trying to negotiate. And he is there. People who are not in the know today think that I had anything to do with that arrest. And therefore, because we left government, I have actually told anyone who cares to listen, we never left with anything in government. We left all files intact. We never left with files. We never left with records. They are there. I would want one officer in Kenya today to come forth and say, I received a phone from Karanja Kibicho. One, not two, to say an officer. Then you will call him here. I face him to say, which phone call did I make to you to arrest anybody? One. I don't want to. But you see, when these perceptions are being pushed and said, where we have no forum of defending ourselves, yeah, most of the time, because when you are in a political space, you also must understand the audience.
Mm-hmm. But it will be disingenuous of you to say that you have no forum to defend yourself, because we've had also the former cabinet secretary on the platform ask the same questions regarding River Yala. Would you account for the bodies that were actually found in River Yala under your watch as well? And he's been always, obfuscating and, pussyfooting around the issue, talking about, public inquest that now will have Kenyans to really come and say, and give an account of the missing people and which bodies were found there. There is no clarity that has been given, neither from him, and I don't know also if you're going to clarify today as well.
We needed to finish with Kamata. Then,
was that part of Kamata? Maybe Kamata, then they're taken to River Yala.
Today I want you to ask all the questions, including the ugly ones, that are pendled around because you want to achieve a certain political mileage. I've made an offer. Yeah, I was PS for Interior for 7 years. When I went there was an Inspector General, I think that time he was Boynet. There was Kemayo, I found him. Then Boynet. Then Mutiambai. And when I was leaving, there was this other one. What was the name of the last one?
Kanja?
No.
Not Kanja.
The before one.
It eludes me as well.
Yeah. I would want, and they had Deputy Inspector Generals of Police. Obviously, I don't expect there is a Kenyan who would think I was calling an OCS. So if I'm calling someone to arrest someone, I would obviously call those ones. When I came in, there was a DCI, Mohoro, and left when there was a DCI, Kenoti. Yeah, those are the ones who are, when he came in, there was Geshangi, who was the Director General of NIS, and Kameru, who was Director General of NIS when we left. Yeah, I am offering myself, one of them, to say that Kibicho called us and told us, arrest this person. and I'll take full responsibility. You know, there are lies that are peddled, and they seem to be true. If there is a DCI who arrested a person and arrested that person wrongfully on a Friday, that kamata, that person has a responsibility to actually take on that DCI head on. Then the DCI will go to court and say, oh, no, I was not acting out of my own volition, I was told by Kibicho. Then I will take full responsibility in this country. In fact, I will not need to be tried. I'll walk to prison and tell them, be saying the years when I'm inside. Because all this, imagine, are lies.
So the River Yala also, people are
I will say this. Of course, my former boss, I know, has been to this station to talk about this matter. And it doesn't matter what anyone says. There is a hype that River Yala. I'll pose the question to you. Yeah? When, of course, systems want to do what people imagine, they would have a motivation. You are trying to cure a problem. Yeah? What problem, possibly, could one have been trying to cure with River Yala? Which one? Then I would, and that is why I support my former boss fully, when he says, let's go for a public inquest. You, I will ask you, because you have talked about it. Tell me one person. There are bodies, right? Tell me one person you know, by name, by their village, by their parents, who was extracted from River Yala. Then we go backwards, and that's the essence of the public inquest. We go backwards. Then this person must have been killed by the government because he was a nuisance to them. Just tell me one person. The essence of a public inquest is to see, because there must be a claimant, because bodies can be found which are not necessarily because someone is killing. It could even be a ritual. We saw Shakahola. Nobody knows, and that's why there is, when those people who are there say, we don't know, then the public inquest will come and say, my cousin wrote a tweet about Kibicho, and Kibicho got very annoyed and killed him. Then we will go and look, what was the tweet? But you see, these mass condemnation, because something happened without anybody. The fact that you found bodies in River Yala, who said they must have been killed by government? And that's the essence of the inquest. They could have been a ritual. We have just seen Shakahola. If this government did not actually move fast to show that this is a cult-like thing, today they would be accused of killing people and burying them in Shakahola. So we need a similar thing when we are not emotional and when we are logical, and that can only be solved by an inquest. But as I exit that, I just want to ask you, do me a favor, tell me one person, only one, I don't want to. You know was killed in River Yala, you know their place, you know their relatives, and why they were killed. One. Then we have a basis of doubting the demand for an inquest.
All right, let's leave it at that. And
you see, you don't have one. I mean, you just admit you don't have one.
Yes, let's wait for the public inquest if it will happen.
And you see,
so that we may actually clear the air.
You see, you see, I'm here, Karanja Kibicho, an innocent Kenyan citizen whose address is known, who walks in the streets of Nairobi, in the streets of Kagio. Surely, if Kibicho murdered a person, why should he be walking free? He should actually be arrested and charged with the murder. But you see, because there is public mob justice, it looks like it's true. Why tell me, why would the government not actually go for the people who killed people in River Yala? Why? Just go for them. You are the government. If Kibicho actually was guilty of that, go for him. Don't talk. Just arrest him. And say, on this day, the records show there was this, and we are connecting you with this murder. Then I put myself to defense. But you know, talking for political expediency doesn't help a government and the people take action. If there are people who are guilty, yeah, Mackenzie is in prison. He is being tried. He is in remand, is he not? The Shakahola one. Who is in remand for River Yala. And that is why the inquest is important, so that we separate facts from fiction.
All right, let's leave it at that. So let me ask you, still with the Kamata, even as we're ending up on it, because we've seen also your former boss has been exonerated by the courts with that particular incident that we had with the immigration saga with Miguna. But also you and the cabinet secretary then, you starkly denied, or you actually were summoned by the Senate and you failed to appear. Is there any rhyme or reason why you and the cabinet secretary failed to appear before Senate?
Obviously, it was very fashionable.
It was fashionable?
Fashionable to drag in the name of Karanja Kibicho in things that he is not even involved in. One, and I told you I'm not here to drag blame on people. In the Ministry of Interior, then there were 3 state departments. One was the one involved for security and citizen. It became citizen services before. It was involved with the internal security. There is another one that was concerned with immigration, and there was another one for correctional services, the one that was dealing. There were 3 of them. Then, of course, later they were merged to 2, and that's when it became Ministry of Interior and State Department of Interior and Citizen Services. So there was a PS responsible for immigration, who was actually the one going with the minister around Miguna thing. But because my dear friend General Kialangwa probably was not attracting sufficient attention, then Kibicho must be brought in, because when Kibicho is brought in, then it looks like a serious matter.
That was really right up your alley.
Yes. I had nothing to do with it, but I have knowledge around it. Mm-hmm. But I had nothing to do with it. Okay. Fact is that until 2020 Constitution, Kenya could not allow, what do you call this thing of multiple citizenship? Mm-hmm. Dual citizen. Mm-hmm. Could not allow. It was illegal in the country. And anybody who would relocate to another country and acquire citizenship of that country, even if you are born in Kenya with all rights, you would have to denounce the Kenyan one so that you get the other one. But post 2010, the Constitution allowed that you can have multiple citizenship. But for those particular people who had denounced earlier, because by birth, you have a right to be Kenyan. You only had denounced because of the law that existed, and now the law has opened up. There was a leeway that for those who had denounced and they want to reclaim this citizenship, then here is a 1-page form to recall, because you already had denounced it. It can't be you will recall by mouth.
Yes.
Obviously, government doesn't work by words of mouth. So and that is why I think the case was even thrown out, because here is a 1-pager. Yeah, Kenya is not a rogue state. When you are traveling in and out of Kenya, you travel with documents, right? Tell me what kind of a country we shall be when an individual, because of his beliefs, decides that I will come to the country and I will not even use the internationally acknowledged travel document, which is a passport. I want to use my ID. After all, I'm a Kenyan. Yeah? You know, all this saga was about drama that was uncalled for. Because all you need to do is fill a one-pager. And what happened that time, I will know because I was in the ministry, is that for Miguna, when all this drama came, it was even taken to him, filled to the airport and told, please sign only here. He took it to it and said, I'm using this ID to enter this country. Really, if you allow that, what happens to your international reputation of managing immigration services? And I think a lot of these things, because there are people who speak louder than others, look like there are issues. But, you know, you cannot hide truth forever.
We had the state machinery, we had the deep state, so to speak, you had the incumbency, you had all that it could have taken for you to retain power. But as it be right now, you are outsmarted by Dr. William Ruto. And now he's the president of the country.
I don't think Dr. Ruto...
Was it a political sleight of hand that really came from that left side that you never anticipated? Was it a poor strategy from your end as well? Did you fail?
You know, this question...
The Azimiote.
This question, I keep getting. There's a group of Kenyans who think, in fact, at around that time when people you know, results are trickling in, and there are a group of people saying, even if Ruto is leading, Kibicho atu hapo. Hii itageuliwa. You know, hii iwezi kuwa hivi. And I ask a basic question. Would you have wanted Kibicho to rig elections so that Raila wins? I mean, that's the basic question. Because Ruto had more votes than Raila. So would you have chosen that Kibicho breaks the law and rigs so that Raila wins, even though Raila was being supported probably by the state machinery? Would you rather that Kibicho broke the law and started stuffing boxes against the will of the people for government to look effective? And I will remain eternally grateful to both the fourth president and Raila, because they did not place a call to us to tell us to change the will of the people.
I want to appreciate you. And of course, this is happy holidays. We'll give you also an opportunity to wish Kenyans, you know, happy holidays.
Yes.
And tell them also to come to Abai Lodge. Is it overbooked right now?
Everybody is actually welcome to Abai Lodges. We are a new hotel where we redefine exclusivity. Come there and I'm sure you'll come back again. But for the festive season, I think we are at it again. My prayer is that we keep ourselves sane. We celebrate the season, don't overindulge, and ensure that we keep watching over each other. Yeah. Don't drive recklessly. Don't drive while drunk.
Indeed. Thank you for your valid company and happy felicitations for the festive season. Do take care of yourself, drive safely, also indulge responsibly. My name is Debala Nair. Thank you very much.